Hello, my name is Chris Snipes, and you are listening to The Melt. I had been a fan of David Lynch's work since the late 80s when I was hanging out with the art school crowd in Kansas City, watching Eraserhead and Blue Velvet a multitude of times in a multitude of states of mind. My friends and I would quote both of these films endlessly, and watching them became almost as participatory as the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So when Twin Peaks came on TV in 1990, it had my full attention, as I was already well tuned in to Lynch's universe, which explored the mysterious dark layer of reality that seemed to exist just beneath the surface of everyday mundanity. I was enthralled by this, as I somewhat suspected the existence of this dynamic in the tiny ordered world that I grew up in. When Twin Peaks: The Return came out in 2017, I decided to put together a two-part musical tribute to Twin Peaks and the world of Lynch in general on my other podcast, Twilight Language. I got a hold of a few cast members to ask them if they'd be so kind as to record a bumper for these tributes, and one of the four people who got back to me was today's guest, Kimmy Robertson. This then led me to ask her to record a story of a UFO encounter that she had had for an intro to an earlier Melt episode, and some 2 years later she now has her own episode. I start off the conversation by asking Kimmy when it was that she first realized that there was more to reality than what was on the surface.
Well, when I was 6.5, I had surgery on my back where they fused 9 of my vertebrae in the thoracic area. I was the second white female on the planet that they performed the surgery on. This particular surgeon had been practicing in China. God only knows what that means. But for scoliosis. And so as I was being wheeled into the operating room, right up the street, turns out, no one in my family could remember where this was done, the name of the hospital or where the hospital was. And that's another story. But because I found it. I didn't find it. My dog found it. But anyway.
Really?
Yeah. So as I was being wheeled into the operating room, I all of a sudden was watching myself being wheeled. So I was up on the ceiling, and then they put me on in the operating room. They put me on the operating table facing up, and they explained what they were going to do, put this thing over my mouth, and then I was to count backwards from 100. I'm 6.5, so I'm thinking, oh, that might be difficult. So I said 100, 99, and then I was back up on the ceiling looking, and I was getting smaller and smaller, and everything was being fainter and fainter, and then I was gone. And then the next thing my body remembered was I could hear myself screaming, and I was flying through all these clouds, cold, like fog, and pastel colors, and I could see my parents and myself really far away, and I was sitting up. Well, I just had back surgery, so I guess I wasn't supposed to sit up, obviously, and I was screaming. My body was screaming. It must have just terrified my parents. My God. And then all of a sudden, I was in my body and I saw my parents and I went, and they said, they made me lay down. And I went, oh yeah, I'll lay down. So after college, I had a Cosmopolitan magazine next to my bed and I was reading it. And all of a sudden, I was noticing this person describing, I didn't even know what I was reading. It said out of body, didn't ever hear of that. This was in like 1976 or something. And they described everything, just like what happened to me. And I had told my parents, and they were like, yeah. And stuff I told my parents, like my mom actually took me to a priest and everything to make sure I wasn't the devil. And we were Episcopalians, so
Gotcha.
that doesn't work very well there, you know. So, so that was that. But also when I was in my crib, so this was before that, I was in my crib. My mother would put me to have my nap in the afternoon. And I would lie there and go, okay, they're coming. And I was aware that I had the capability to stop them from coming if I told them not to come. But I also was very polite. I'm from a polite family. I saw in a movie, the bad guy said, you'd be surprised how many people are too polite to stay alive. He was a murderer. I was like, no shit. And I obviously have learned since then. But so very often during naps, I would know they were coming. So I'd climb up my crib and hang on to the top of the crib. And there was a thing of Bakelite over it because we didn't have plastic back then in the 50s. And I would chew on it with my gums, like, and flip it with my tongue and wait. And then I'd look at the door, and then through the door, cracks of the door and through the keyhole and under the door would come these pastel clouds. And they'd go all across the room in a semicircle, and then I'd see forms. And I recently saw the forms on television on
Really?
Ancient Aliens when they were talking about these Russian cosmonauts who were out in space, and that there was an orange glow coming through the window. So they went and looked out the window, and there was these 7 angelic beings. And I saw the renderings on Ancient Aliens, and I went, those are the people. That's them. They were the people that would encircle me, like in a semicircle, and tell me stuff, and also love me. It was love and peace. And now, because my family wasn't that loving, it was a kind of a new feeling for me. So I was a little bit scared, but I still endured it. And they've come back several times in my adult life. But also, I did speak to a friend of mine, Julie, and she said that happened to her as a kid too.
Interesting. So it was like you already knew these entities, like they were familiar. You weren't threatened by them.
No, I was scared though, because they came in through a cloud.
Sure. There's that.
And I didn't know anybody else that traveled that way at the
Sure.
time. So, and the room would get cold. But I've since think that maybe they're from the Pleiades.
Uh-huh.
Because I heard that those people have evolved past what we are into light beings, and their whole thing is peace, harmony, and love.
Some people call it 4D or 5D, something like that, different dimension.
Oh, I heard also that Jesus and Mother Mary were Pleiadians.
Yeah, my girlfriend thinks that Jesus was an alien, and that the miracles that he supposedly performed were just what people did where he comes from. And it
Right.
makes sense. Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like it's pretty obvious. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So these beings that came into your room, did you just kind of not tell your parents? Did you get a good idea that that wasn't something that you...
I couldn't talk then. I couldn't speak. I mean, I was a kid, baby.
Okay, yeah, you said crib, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I told the story in the mid 70s to a friend of mine who's a doctor. At that time he was a head of pediatric neurology at UCLA, and he told me I couldn't have had that memory because I didn't have language, and you can't remember things without language. And I said, your science is really wrong, because I know people who moved out of their house when they were 7 months old, and they can draw you the floor plan. They certainly couldn't talk at 7 months. I mean, these particular people, this person and other people that I've talked to, did tell me they couldn't speak, because after he told me that, I was all confused. And then I asked people stuff. People remember stuff for language. That's just
Absolutely.
silly.
Yeah, for sure. They may not remember. They may remember it in a different way, but they didn't have. You don't have any words to describe it, obviously, when you're that young. But you seem to draw that experience and be able to recall it now.
Yeah,
So you
I
said...
was always sorry.
No, no. I was just going to say, you said they've returned throughout your life, right?
Yes, they have.
With words, with messages, with...
No words. They
Uh,
never say words, but the times they've come were times of extreme need, and they just gave me the feeling of peace and love. And I don't know. Okay, so back to my dog. I had this dog, Oz, and the last 2 weeks of his life, he I got the feeling he was going to be passing away. And there was no reason for this. He wasn't old, but at one point I was walking in a canyon and he wasn't by me. And I looked, he was up on the hill right by me. And he was reaching out with his nose. And I saw, my eyes focused and saw he was touching noses with a coyote who was napping there in the sun. And I heard goodbye, and felt goodbye. Oz was telling the coyote goodbye. And then he was doing stuff like extra rolls in the grass down in the canyon. And then after walks, we would walk for 2, sometimes 4 hours, and he'd swim, and he'd be wet and dirty, and then he'd sit on me in the car and we'd go for a drive. And I would go where he wanted me to go. I would hear where to go. He was my guru. He taught me, or reminded me, how to see rainbows in droplets of water on the grass, just everything. So this one time in this 2-week period, he had me up somewhere where I didn't know where we were. I was North Pasadena and on a street I had not been on. And I said, Oz, I don't know where we are, but okay, you want me to turn left? I'm turning left. And it was a curved street. So where you were going, you couldn't see what was around the corner. So I went around the corner, and there was the hospital that I had the back surgery in. And St. Luke's is the name of it, in North Pasadena, or Altadena, I guess. And my whole body it was like the most amazing release of stress and tension. And I immediately started to cry, but not cry, I mean, just tears. And Oz jumped out of the car and went and was rolling on the grass. And like, I did it. She finally knows where this is. She can let that go, for fuck's sake.
That's great.
And so we walked all around and looked in the windows. And then when we did Twin Peaks, we used that hospital as a base camp. It was just too weird. I mean, for 60 years, I didn't know where that was. And then all of a sudden it's there and using it as a base camp, the return. So when Ozzy then showed me he was going to pass away, he walked into the living room and laid down. And right from him all the way up through the ceiling was a thing that looked like a cinnamon roll, a tube. And the cinnamon roll was light and it opened up. It was a swirl. The light opened up, the cinnamon roll opened up, the whole thing opened up. And the feeling that hit me in the room was the most intense love and peace. And out of it flew things, and they were flying around the room counterclockwise, and I heard giggling and tinkling, like glass, pieces of glass tinkling, and they looked like hummingbirds, but they weren't hummingbirds. And I went, holy shit, fucking fairies. I was like, what is... And then it all closed and he was gone.
Wow.
And so when I see those swirls on Ancient Aliens and they're wondering what they are, I'm screaming at the TV, I know what they are. I got one here in my living room. It's a portal.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. A portal from one dimension to the other, maybe. Wow.
Yes.
That's powerful. Absolutely powerful.
Yes.
Have you had out-of-body experiences since then, since you were young?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I know of, no. Mm-mm.
And you've felt like you've been sort of in touch with this dimension of things for most of your life, off and on?
Yes, and I was meditating once at a place, and someone was leading the meditation. This wasn't TM. This was something else, a class I took, and I felt as I was sitting there. This happened to be an open eye meditation where you just look at a point on the floor. And I saw a star, like a Christmas star, 3-dimensional, longer on the top and the bottom, come from way up to the right and kind of zigzag down and stopped right here and just turned in front of me, rotated. And I was being like doused with love, this peace and love, and such an intense feeling again. And then it went back away. I mean, it had a tail, like, and it had a tail when it went back. And I've since thought, since I've done some reading, maybe that was from a little postcard from the Pleiades. Because I have read that people like me that see ghosts, that talk to dead people, that have all this kind of stuff happen, are part something else, part alien. I never believed that, though, because I thought, well, if they're going to make a person that's a hybrid, they sure did a shitty job with my body. They should have done some checking the DNA before they decided to put me in it.
They're still working out the bugs.
Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned in the story that you sent me a while back for an earlier episode, the UFO encounter that you had. Have you had any other viewings of craft or anything like that?
Okay, so it was maybe this summer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely like August or July. I went out in front. So I live in Pasadena. I'm in the front yard. And I always look up at the stars. And I looked up and I went, oh, there's a satellite going like this. Yeah, that's cool. I wonder. And then it went like that. And then it went like that. And I went, okay, that's not a satellite. They don't make right angle turns and then go back the other way.
Yes.
And then I came inside and I thought about it for a while. And then a couple weeks later, maybe a week later, I was outside and my niece was here. And the same thing happened. And I screamed, Carly, come out. And my niece came out. And I said, see that? That just did a right angle turn. And she went, huh. I said, no, it's not a satellite, but it looks like it. And then it did it again. So she saw it. So it wasn't just me seeing things.
Yeah, I saw something like. Go ahead.
I think I was figuring out that what that was something from the Air Force Base over there up the coast, Vandenberg, that it's some sort of craft that they're testing. I didn't get the sense that it was a UFO, but it was just a regular UFO. Like, we have technology that we don't know about, and that was it. Like, why else would that be happening over Pasadena, for crying out loud?
Sure,
and then was no helicopter, that's for sure.
Yeah, not doing right turns like that, by no means. And most people are going to say it's a UFO, and then most other people around them are going to go, yeah, right. And so then it's what a perfect way to disguise itself, like nobody's going to believe the people who saw it. So it's like kind of right out there in front of everybody.
Well, they want us to stay dumb. They want the people down on this level to just go about their lives buying, their stuff and living. They don't want them to know what's actually going on. I mean, because they get scared and run around screaming like this. Ah!
Or I think, it might be empowering to people to know. I mean, I think like with, how materialistic science seems to be, and science is almost kind of a new religion these days to some people, and they start thinking that the physical world is all that there is. So anything outside of that is just, airy-fairy. It's fun to watch on TV on programs that are kind of goofy, but not something that's real, not something to be taken seriously. I think if we realized that there was more to life than stuff and our little human suits and stuff like that, we would, we'd be a lot more powerful. We'd be able to realize a lot more and be a lot more in this world, I think.
And use our junk DNA, as they call it.
Exactly.
Why would we have junk DNA? I'm so sure. Everything is so logical. There's a reason for every bug, everything on Earth, and then there's also a counter to it. So any disease, there's a cure. Nature is not random. And if people don't believe this stuff, is because that part of their brain hasn't opened up yet. And mine has, because I've always said it's probably because the other part never opened. So I had to use this part.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a good way of putting it.
Like TM, they know scientifically it opens the frontal lobe, which is compassion, humanity, love and stuff. And that's a scientific fact. And so people who do TM, like David Lynch's TM, they're that particular kind, like Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, like the Beatles, who I think actually were our prophets and we didn't notice. Typical, our generation, my generation sucks. Anyway, it opens that lobe, and then so a part of your brain is there that you can comprehend stuff where you couldn't, 3 days before. And I think it's not just the frontal lobe. I think there's lots of lobes that have opened up for me, because I believe and know stuff to be true and have seen stuff and stuff that I didn't even know existed. Like, I didn't know I could talk to dead people. That just happened one day. And then before I knew it, I had a line of dead people. I finally learned how to make that stop, because I don't know how to help people. I did help a couple of friends of mine by talking to their one's husband and one's dad. They needed to find some stuff, but dead people, it's really important that you do stuff before you pass out of your body, that you talk to people that you want to talk to before you pass away, or go see them, or do the stuff. Don't have somebody else do it for you after you're dead. And certainly don't come to me, because I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't take a class on dead people.
How did you discover that you could do that?
Well, first, it happened in chunks. Like, first Jack Nance came to me
Oh,
and
wow.
and then many years later, I went to a funeral, and I was standing looking in the casket. It was an acquaintance of mine, Howard. And all of a sudden, I was like, Howard's standing next to me, and we're both standing here looking at Howard. And then I went home, and I woke up in the morning, and my friend, who was also a friend of his, called me and said, "How are you? Thanks for coming to the funeral. And how are you today?" I said, "Howard's here." He said, "He is? Where?" He said, "He's standing at the foot of the bed. He wants to know what we're doing today." Howard, I don't even know how he knew where I lived, because Howard had never been here. So Howard came home with me. That's what he went out to the car with me, got in, and came. For all I know, I slept with Howard.
Well, I think that it may be in that dimension too. There's a way of navigating where you just think of something and you're there. So he probably thought of you, and there he was.
Yeah, I did tell him. My friend told me to tell him to go into the light, or wherever feels like love. So I did that, and then he was gone.
Well, we just needed a little nudge, a little direction.
Yeah, I think he thought we were going to Disneyland or something.
Well, I was going to mention too, a lot of people from Twin Peaks have passed away, like not too long after it was released, at least the return. So you
Yes,
saw, go
we
ahead.
all came here. We all came here to do Twin Peaks, and then we got to finish, which was a miracle. And then their job was done, so they left.
How does that, I mean, it seems like a natural progression for you to come into a situation like that where you stumble into this well, I shouldn't say stumble. I don't know how you cross paths with David Lynch, but you came into this project that dealt with a lot of those otherworldly things. Did that seem like, did you feel like you were meant to be there? Like you were an important part of that?
I didn't think I was an important part of anything, but I thought I was meant to be there for sure. Absolutely. It was, in many ways, I felt as though that's why I came here, in this body at this time. And the fact that we didn't get to finish, I remember when we were doing Fire Walk with Me, I was really upset. And I said something to David Lynch, and he said, "Lucy, don't say that." And I said, "Okay, I won't say it out loud. I apologize." And I said, "But I am upset that we might not be on this set ever again." And he said, "There's other sets. We can always build the set somewhere else, and we will." And, then I heard him say, that he would never revisit Twin Peaks ever. So then when this happened, and we were on the set in the sheriff's station, in the sheriff's office, Robert Forrester's office, David Lynch called me over to Video City, and he said, "So, Lucy, what do you think?" And I said, "I think this is a fucking miracle. That's what I think." And I had written on my journal something silly, but what it felt like to me was like an actor will wait an entire lifetime to work to be in one of David Lynch's art pieces. Just wait literally a lifetime. 30 years is a lifetime to be one of his colors, like the color blue in his painting, because that's how great it is to work for somebody like him, that you would absolutely come and wait a lifetime just to be in Twin Peaks and then in The Return, to work with him. This is nothing to do with the finished product. I'm not a critic. I'm not a casting director. I'm not a director, and I'm not an editor. I'm not a film scorer. I'm just an entertainer. I'm not even really an actor. So that it was really something to get to work with a person like that. And the book ends my life, in my mid-30s and my mid-60s. That's really something.
Absolutely. And it evolved so much. It wasn't like just rehashing a bunch of old tropes from the first 2 seasons. Well, really the first season. He was there intermittently through the second season, but it really seemed like it evolved and got more multidimensional.
Yes, he got to do what he wanted to do, finally. And really, it was an 18-hour movie. It's really, I can't say that out loud, but really that's what it is.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that's when I hear people getting irritated with the long, repetitive, like something just taking its time. It's like, that's meditation. That's the screen. You're looking at a meditation that's happening there. Like, breathe a little bit, then go into the next scene. Like, I savored that so much. And so many people made them cranky. It's like, come on.
Well, yeah, it's not meant, it's meant to evoke, it's like art. It's all I can say. Art does things to some people and other things to other people. And remember Eraserhead? Did you see Eraserhead?
Several times.
Remember the scene where Jack gets in the elevator,
mm-hmm.
and he pushes the button, and then
Yes.
He blinks a couple times and he looks at the button. He looks back at the. And I
love it.
Oh my God, who is this person? And it turns out when they were filming Eraserhead at Greystone Mansion, I was there the same time. I was there all the time because I would go there after ballet class, before the next ballet class, and I just hang around. And then also I had a photo shoot there, and I remember seeing them shooting stuff because they were in the stables when I was in this. It was really, and also my grandparents lived in Twin Peaks, California.
Wow.
It's like the universe folding over and over into an origami bird.
Yeah, fractal.
Yeah.
Yeah, or fractal. Like the holographic universe. One piece contains all of the pieces, contains the whole.
And I've always thought religion is science. If you go back to all religions, I haven't been able to get through the Quran, okay? I've tried. I just haven't been able to. I've tried. With the Book of Mormon, Science of Mind, the First and Second Testament, the Book of Enoch, those things, it's science. They're describing science from, 40,000 years ago and stuff. And bless you, our people, scientists or whoever the fuck it is, tells us we're 5,000 years old. Our the pyramids are 5,000 years old.
It's insane.
This is all just logic and a little bit of reading and then a little bit of thinking. I'm not saying you have to be a rocket scientist to grasp all this, but gosh, it's fun to pretend and read all this stuff and see what you come up with.
And remain open-minded.
Doesn't mean there's no God. Doesn't mean that, I mean, Tesla, Jesus, Einstein, good Lord.
Exactly. I agree. And it is like science. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is kind of like that. Like, you're supposed to read it for the 49 days after somebody dies to guide them through the bardo, which is in between lives. And it's like, It's got such detail. It's so amazing.
I wish he would do that, because then I wouldn't have so many dead people waiting to talk to me.
You should just have should have an ethereal, an astral PowerPoint presentation. Just watch this, and then if you still have questions, get back to me.
Yes. That's my PowerPoint. I have to tell you also what happened once. I have two quick things. I was walking in the canyon and with my dog Zeke, not Ozzy, Zeke. And they were brothers. Not DNA, but brothers. And so this is one of the last times I walked down there with Zeke. He doesn't want to go down there anymore. And I felt somebody watching us, and I kept looking, and all I would see was a man made out of weeds, like water weeds, like seaweed. And I saw this many times, and then I was asleep at night, and I woke up, and he was in my bedroom. And I asked a friend of mine about it. She's an expert at talking. Her name is Marla Freeze, talking to the dead people. And she said, I drew a picture and asked her what it was. And she said, it's a protection spirit. You should have asked what you could do for him. So that night he came back, and I said, is there something I can do for you? And I heard, I'm here to protect you. You're fine now. So whatever was down there in the canyon, when Zeke and I were there, that was making him nervous, he was protecting us. Okay, so that's one story.
Okay.
And then you have Northern Lights on your background. Mm-hmm. So I was flying back from England, and I was in first class. In fact, I was at the very front of the airplane on Air New Zealand. Wow, wonderful. And we were coming over the pole, and they made up the bed for nighttime. We had eaten. It's time to go to bed. And I put on earphones and was listening to Rafe Vaughan Williams' A Lark Ascending. And something told me, I get these messages over here. It's called clairaudio. And that's always quiet, never emotional, just monotone. Look out the window. So I said, okay. I didn't argue with it for once. I looked out the window on my hands and knees on my little bed, and there was the Northern Lights on the tip of the wing of the jet. And it was going to the music in my earphone. It was doing the Lark Ascending.
Wow.
It was unbelievable. And I screamed, and the steward came up and said, ma'am, are you okay? And I said, it's the Northern, I had my earphones. It's the Northern Lights. They're on the tip. Sorry, it's the Northern Lights. They're on the tip of it. And he says, oh, yes, they're often there on this particular route. And I said, but they're following the music. And he said, oh, yeah, people have told me that before. And then went on his way. I was like, wow. That's jaded.
Yeah, exactly. Oh.
This is Buttonella.
Buttonella. Hello, Buttonella.
He has one blue eye and one green eye.
Oh, cool. Warlocky.
She's one of the lost Disney princesses, and she comes from the land of Gar. So there's Tomorrowland, Adventureland, Garland. Because Garland. She likes to play in Christmas Garland. Get it?
Yes. Did you?
snowflakes do the same thing,
Yeah, snowflakes are fractally too.
and they go to the music.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I have made music mixes before that were just for watching snow, so that would make sense. I never put the two together.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I
Just
love
for
snow.
watching snow. What a great title. Well, I haven't seen that much of it because where I live. So.
Exactly. But you grew up around snow, right?
No, I was born on Hollywood Boulevard in
Oh,
a hospital.
not just on the street.
Sunset, actually, not Hollywood. I get them mixed up.
It's getting close to the time that you have to go, right?
No, we have
Oh,
like 15 minutes.
oh, cool. Fantastic.
I just want to get in, I don't want to be too late for the thingamajig.
Yeah, I understand. Um, okay. Well,
And I also feel like I haven't gotten to the meat of what you want to talk about yet. So ask me more particular, more specific questions, maybe. I feel like I'm missing something.
I'm missing something? Maybe you could.
Miss.
No, not at all. I think these stories are good. They're coming about organically. I only know so much to ask. I can't see inside of your timeline, so I don't know, in essence, what to ask, except about more vague questions about experiences, or maybe.
Oh, I can tell you something else that was interesting.
Okay.
That's also short. So my whole life, I've collected round objects, glass, marbles, round crystal balls, big gold sheen obsidian things. I'll be standing and I'll look down, there's a marble. And I've often wondered why. And one day, about 10 years ago, I looked it up. Orbs. I looked up orbs, and it said that's what the soul looks like. Well, then cut to 3 years ago, my mother wasn't well. I brought her here, and near the time where she passed away, I was upstairs in bed, and in the morning I would wake up and I would see like balloons on the ceiling, coming through the ceiling, always orbs, but many different sizes. And the biggest one was about the size of a basketball, and wherever all those lines are in there was different colors. And I felt that was my Uncle Nick, my mother's oldest brother, who was like a father to her. And yeah, and a whole bunch of others, all the relatives. I could just feel it. And then they went down through me. And my mother would be sitting in the living room in the rocking chair watching the news or something, like how old people like to watch the news constantly. And I would come down and she wouldn't hear me, and she'd be doing this.
Interesting.
So she saw them too, and she thought they were balloons, probably.
Uh-huh.
So she was batting them away.
Instead of calling
brother away.
I wonder if that's what she saw them as, or just like some sort of hallucination.
I'm sure. Well, my mother was mentally crazy, but after she passed away, she wasn't crazy anymore. But the mortuary, these great guys in Burbank, they came and got her, and my sister and I went there the next day, and we were sitting there, and he's talking to us about stuff, and she was going to be cremated, and I said, may I use the restroom? And he said, sure. So I went, because it's way down the end of the hall. And I said, okay, I'll find it. So I was down there peeing, and I could smell my mother, and then I could feel her. And I said, Mom, you can't stay here. This is a crematorium. You're going to get burned alive. And she didn't leave. So I went running back up there, and I said, oh my God. He goes, what's the matter? What happened back there? I said, my mother is back there. And oh, there goes the clock. My mother's back there, and she won't leave. And she's going to get burned alive. And he goes, oh, no, we can't have that. And he reaches into the umbrella stand and pulls out a sword, a saber, and goes running back there. I'll take care of this. And he came back, and I felt her leave. I did. And he came back and put the saber back in the umbrella stand and said, yeah, this happens all the time.
What? Just like the Northern Lights on the wing. Like, what? That's so strange. I mean, I guess it isn't.
If you actually went out and stopped people randomly and sat them down, everybody's got a weirdo story.
For sure.
They just hide it with their Eddie Bauer clothes.
Yes.
But he said he was one of the Knights of the Round Table, and so this is why he does what he does. And I said to him when I came running up, I said, she won't listen to me. She doesn't like women. She'll only listen to men, and you're a man. Can you? Unless we got the saber.
Like
Not
Dudley
a sword,
Do-Right.
Saber.
Not to open a can of worms so late in the interview, but psychedelics. Have you had much in experience with that?
I hallucinate naturally. So, first of all, I was born in 1954, and back then people drank when they were pregnant in the first trimester, and that in the baby's cortex, it messes up the cortex. So one psychedelic, and you are then bipolar and schizophrenic. One trip.
Really?
So I've never done any kind of psychedelic ever, and won't.
Interesting.
Ever. I wouldn't recommend that for anyone in my generation. Yeah, there's a lot of people who you've heard of maybe who went to college, took one acid trip, and then were schizophrenic. That's why.
Interesting. I never knew of the connection between those two things.
I come from a scientific family, and so I know a lot of random stuff like breast cancer molecules can't leave your body unless it's attached to an iodine molecule. And in the late 70s, they took iodine out of all of our food and stuff, and then consequently breast cancer became rampant. So if you don't take an iodine supplement, the breast cancer molecule cannot leave your body. Just like tannin from tea. The reason so many people in England don't have osteoporosis is because tannin has to bond to a calcium molecule to leave your body. So, and they put milk in their tea. So they don't have osteoporosis, whereas a lot of people who drink tea with lemon and iced tea, they're playing with fire because that can't leave your body unless it's attached to a calcium molecule, and it has to get it somewhere, so it'll get it from your bones. It'll leach it out of your bones.
Fun facts.
Fun facts. First year medical school, that's all you got to do is 1 year and you learn all this crap.
You did 1 year? You got one more story?
No, I didn't do 1 year. My sister's a doctor, and she called quite often telling me this stuff. And I just happen to have a good memory for useless information. So about let's see, 8 years ago, I would come downstairs and meditate in the morning and watch Kelly and Michael on the morning show on ABC. And the reason I was watching her was I had a feeling I was going to be doing something. I knew I was going to be getting a job where I'd be needing to talk to people, and I wanted to see how normal people talk to each other. So as I was sitting here, all this quantum science started coming into my head. And after 4 days, I understood quantum science, like all of it. And I was calling my sister, and she was like, what book are you reading? Where are you reading this? It's just coming into my head. So then I was driving to an audition and I said, thanks for giving me all this information, but I'm wondering how you got it into my head. Like, there's no extension cord, there's no wires. How did you get it into my head? I realize it's up there, the information. I realize it went into my head, but how did it get from there to here? What did the information travel on? I was obsessed by this. And I'm pumping gas and I'm like, so are you ever going to answer me? What did this travel on? Please tell me. And I hear, look down. And I'm like, oh, I'm asking you something that's really, really important and you're telling me to look down. Okay, if I look down, will you promise to tell me what the information traveled through the air on to get into my head? Look down. So finally I looked down. In between my feet was this ring.
And you don't know where it came from? Love.
No, it was lying there.
Wow. That's amazing.
Traveled on love. That's when I realized love is all there is. It's all that's real. Everything else is drama, to waste time, be entertained, be human, be dirty, be in this dimension. But right next to it is another dimension that's beautiful and holy or spirit, and they're attached. And then one day, and the way you find that is through the numbers 369. Those are the spirit numbers. All the other numbers are this plane, the human plane. And one day, both of these dimensions, some people can see to the other one, and some people there can come here. But both of them are going to get sucked into our big, giant black hole that our solar system has. We have one of the biggest black holes around, and we're going to get turned into plasma and stuff, and we're going to get spit out the other side and start all over. Start a whole new solar system.
With starting from scratch, or starting kind of leaving where we left off with this one? Starting where we left off with this one.
I'm not clear on that fact. I am not clear. That's a really good question. I don't know the answer. Maybe Tesla knew, Einstein knew, but I haven't read enough of their stuff. I'm a glazer, like glazed donuts. I'm a surface researcher.
I'm kind of the same way too, touching on lots of different things.
Yeah, because there's not enough time to learn every single thing, and there's so much magic out there. And that's another thing. I have to say, I was learning about positive speaking, not positive thinking, but actually positive speaking in the mid-90s. And I was doing a movie. We were in Florida, Speed 2. So we lived on this boat. And I was walking with my friend Patrika Darbo, and who's also a positive speaker, and she was coaching me. And I said, wouldn't it be great if we could swim with the dolphins? And she said, oh, yes. Let's say, yes, we're going to swim with the dolphins. And I said, but it's so expensive. And she went, stop this. What? I said, yes, we're going to swim with the dolphins. And so we walked into the production office, and the guy said, hey, Patrika, Kimmy, do you have any interest in swimming with the dolphins? We've got 2 tickets.
That's great.
And it's a really great place, the Dolphin Research Center. They're not funded by the government at all. So they actually study and love dolphins. And then, so we were parked in Key West on the naval base, which was mostly empty. And my stateroom was looking out to the ocean. And they were filming something to do with the crash or something, people drowning. And I was just looking out my stateroom window and I went, gosh, I wish I could see a dolphin. Out of the water came a dolphin and did one of those flip-de-doos and went back in the water. I was screaming really loud. All my friends and some producers and some other people, like not just actors, came into my room. Are you okay? Are you okay? Oh, you wouldn't believe what just happened. No, there's no dolphins down here, Kimmy. I said, I just saw, okay, well, show us, tell us what you did. I said, okay, everybody put your hands on the window. And everybody put their hands on the window everywhere. And they said, then I just said, oh, I wish I could see a dolphin. And then everyone went, oh, I wish I could see a dolphin. Out of the water, the dolphin!
Oh, that's great.
Like, oh my God, it was so cool.
That's amazing. That's
This is the magic that's available to us that's so much cooler than the Kardashians.
absolutely a million trillion times cooler. Yeah, manifestation. That's you did it. You did it on the fly.
And with some people, I talk to them, and instead of saying positive hoo-ha, I say pretend. Just pretend. I'm gonna pretend that I had a friend who her neighbor had 1 million cats, and I said, well, let's get rid of them. And she went, Kimmy. I said, no. Let's say that the woman wins the lottery or gets $1 million from someone she doesn't know or something, and they all move to the country together and live in a mansion and live happily ever after. And the next day she said, Kimmy, I did that. I imagined her gone and wealthy and all the cats spayed and neutered and happy. A week later, this woman inherited like $5 million from some uncle she never knew she had. She and all the cats, which all 50 cats got spayed and neutered and moved up into Idlewild in a big mansion cabin.
Wow.
And lived happily ever after. So it's magic and pretend for good stuff for other people too.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes things get blocked. I bet you, my mom made my dad make wishes on stars and stuff. And one time she said, Chuck, this time you're not allowed to wish that all your wishes come true. And he went, oh, well, what am I supposed to wish for? You wish for something specific. So he wished for a biplane, a Pitts Special, a red and white one. 2 weeks later, he bought one because a friend of his needed to get rid of it for like $10,000 instead of $45,000. 2 weeks later. And I said, Dad, your wishes were so backed up. It happened like instantly. The wishes get way backed up. You just have to have the balls to ask.
Exactly. That's so way out there for most people, I think. They're like, come on, that's something.
Try to get someone to make a wish on a star. Watch and see what they do. I wish for world peace and that hunger. It's like, no, we wish for a new yellow dress.
Yeah, exactly.
I
My kid put that on his Christmas list, world peace. Like, I can do my best, but I can just be a piece of that piece. So I can only be my own version of that.
it's like a skateboard or
Yeah,
a blue house or a diamond ring, or you can even wish for a man, a handsome, wealthy man that comes into your life to love you. I haven't done that yet. Maybe I should.
get on it.
Well, I'm wealthy so that they have their own house and also car.
Sure. Yeah,
You know?
makes sense. Makes sense. Total sense.
That kind of wealth, and also in their heart. See, it's really hard even for me sometimes, to be specific about what you're wishing for.
Sure. It's scary to put it, because then if it's something super tangible and it doesn't happen, then, like it takes a little air out of the whole process. But you just got to make, you got to make the dive and do it anyway.
It might not happen in 1 week, but it will. It absolutely will happen, because desires are the roadmap to what your life has in store. So you feel, oh, I want a Fiat, a green Fiat. Oh, it's just wasteful. My car is perfectly fine. Whatever. And then one day someone says, I don't want my green Fiat anymore. Would you like? It's like, that's just how it works. And you can't say, I wish for a green Fiat that Bob, who used to live up the street but moved to South Carolina, that one day he realizes his car might rust in South Carolina, so then he remembers me. And you can't tell God how to make your fucking wish come true. It's like actors who have an audition and read the description and go, I'm not a black woman. I'm not going in for this. It's what? It's a description that someone wrote as, okay, this is who would be good for this part. But you have the opportunity to do it as Kimmy, and they might go, well, that could work too. Let's put her in the mix.
Exactly.
And then also a guy, and also maybe a wiener dog.
I like it. Yeah, anything. It's really it's limited by your imagination.
Exactly. And also we limit ourselves by trying to do everybody else's jobs and not doing our own job.
Agreed.
Follow our hearts.
Exactly. But we're the best ones to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moms suck. They don't teach kids and all this stuff.
A lot of moms are misinformed, I think. Especially.
Well, their mom sucks.
Yeah.
Then.
Exactly. It's a long lineage of sucky moms.
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me put on my glasses and see.
Okay, I'll put my glasses on too.
Okay.
What are we looking?
I was just looking at the little bitty clock on the corner of my computer screen.
Oh, yeah.
I want to be mindful of your time, and there's no reason why we can't do this again sometime. So, you be up for that proposition?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's much more. There's many places to dig deeper.
Also, Chris, after you watch this, you might think of some more specific directions that you want to go, because obviously I have a lot of directions that I can go in.
Yeah, no, I could do that for sure. I'll listen, get some more specifics, and have those be the seeds for organic things to shoot all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this, Kimmy. It's been a blast.
Asking me 3 years ago, whenever.
Let us do it again in the near future.
Yes, and Happy New Year, Chris.
Likewise, to you too. This will probably actually be coming out right after the New Year, so that will be a timely message.
Okay, cool.
All right. Take care, Kimmy.
Bye. I don't know how to turn it off, so you're going to have to do it.
I'll do it. Well, that was a thoroughly delightful conversation. Kimmy was very sweet to agree to sit down and have a chat about all of the high strangeness that she has encountered in her life. And I'm hoping that we can do it again soon, because I've got the feeling that we just sort of scratched the surface. If you enjoyed what you heard and would like to contribute and help me to produce more of this stuff, there are ways that you can do that. The most tangible being financially, and you can do that by going to www.patreon.com/themeltpodcast, and there you will find ways to contribute anywhere from $1 up per month. Anything helps to keep the financial wheels of the Melt turning. I'm always trying to make this podcast a better quality, the best quality it can be, and I would love to put more episodes out. Unfortunately, I have to devote a good deal of my time working a job that I'm not particularly enthralled with, but I would love to devote more time to doing this because it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I think that it's very important to have these conversations and to get them out to you guys to listen to. So you can do the Patreon. That's a good financial way of doing it, and other ways are to share. You can share particular episodes or the whole podcast on your social media platform of choice. That helps. Spread the word around. Email it to a friend or a family member who you think might benefit. And other ways would be leaving a good rating or a good review at your podcast hub of choice, whether that be iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, so on and so forth. And if you don't feel particularly compelled to do any of those, send good vibes. Just simply send good vibes. That does help. Vibrations are important. Thoughts are important. Intentions are important. It all matters. Even if your actions aren't speaking, your mind is broadcasting. So just broadcast good stuff in this direction. It helps. Thank you all very much for listening. It's been a wonderful year, 2020. I am looking forward to the next year, although by the time that this comes out, it will be the next year. I hope that everybody has had enjoyable holidays, however you choose to celebrate or not celebrate that. And I am looking forward to another year of fantastic guests and conversations, and I hope not to disappoint. Thank you all so much for listening. You're very much appreciated. And if you have stories that you would like to contribute of your firsthand experiences with some of the things that we talk about here on The Melt, you can send those to themeltpodcast@protonmail.com. And if you've listened to a good deal of Melt episodes, you know that sometimes I include those before the main interview of any given episode if it has to do with the subject matter of said guest and said interview. So yeah, always open to hearing those. Thank you again so much, and until next time, 2 weeks from now, take care.